All right, so there we are live streaming. Thank you. So the meeting is being recorded. Thank you, Taylor. Well, welcome and welcome back. Christopher and I got the same message that you did, that I guess we did a decent job. They wanted us back to do some more work. So thank you, everyone. What do you think, Christopher, about starting by going through the task force members on the list and making sure that those are correct, and that can serve as our introduction?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Would you like me to go through the list, or would you like to do it?
But matters not, go ahead. And we'll announce each person, make sure it's correct. And then if we have openings too, maybe Taylor, we can talk about that, because we have ideas for people to fill in if they could get appointed.
Sure.
Go ahead, Christopher.
All right, so first on our list is Ms. Anne Marie Cullinan, who's the Executive Director of Connecticut ASCD, and she's not with us just yet, but she was appointed by President Looney. I also was appointed by President Looney. I'm from Southern Connecticut State. Dr. Roy's the principal of North Canaan Elementary School and was appointed by the Speaker of the House.
Thank you.
Also appointed by Speaker of the House was Roseanne Wansek-Karp. I don't see her here, but she's a licensed clinical social worker. Also on the committee is Colin Hostin, who is the chairperson of the Norwalk Board of Education. He was appointed by the Senate Majority Leader. The House Majority Leader has a vacant appointment, so that will get filled in at some point. Appointed by the Senate Minority Leader was Dr. Alice Forster of Clifford Beers, who was with us last time. Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back. Yes.
Michael Duggan, who's the Executive Director of DOMAS, was appointed by the Minority Leader of the House. I don't see him here today. Irene Parisi, the Chief Academic Officer for CSDE, also appointed by the Minority Leader of the House. Welcome back, Ms. Parisi. The Commissioner of Early Childhood had been on the task force last year. So either they or their designee will be serving once that vacancy gets filled. Attorney Doolittle of the Healthcare Advocate is with us. Thank you for rejoining us.
Hi, everybody.
From the Labor Department, Mark Polzella, who's the Deputy Commissioner. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And Attorney Hughes, who's the Executive Director of the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, is with us. So
Again, yes, welcome back.
Welcome back. Dr. Kaylee Royston from the Department of Agriculture is with us. Welcome back, Dr. Royston.
Hi, everybody.
Representing the Commissioner of Economic and Community Development is Ms. Takawa Omaro Otuno. Please tell me if I came anywhere close to pronouncing your name correctly.
It's Tekawa Omara Otunu, but you're pretty close.
Omaro Otuno. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us. And you are from you're the program.
I'm from the Office of the Arts. I'm the Arts Education Manager.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ms. Duran from Housing is with us. Welcome back.
Thank you.
From the Department of Public Health is Christine Velasquez. Welcome back to you too.
Hi, thank you.
From the Office of Developmental Services is Tammy Venenga. Is that correct?
Tammy Venenga, yes, thank you.
Welcome. From the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services is Mark Vanacore.
Good afternoon. Yes,
Thanks so much for joining us.
thank you.
Ms. Pam Sucato is here from the Department of Transportation, not Social Services as listed on the list. So we'll have to make that
Thank
change.
you. Nice to be here. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Is there somebody here from DSS?
Yes, I am. This is Astrid Farrenpool, Chief of Staff.
Astrid, ASTRID.
Nope, ASTR EAD.
EAD. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And thanks for being here. We're happy to
Yes.
have you.
Thank
Alright.
you.
The superintendent of the technical education and career system, I know is no longer in that position, but is now a district superintendent. So I don't know if there's a replacement for him yet. Taylor can fill us in for the next meeting. Representing the Commissioner of Children and Families is Ms. Linda Dixon.
Hello.
Good to see you. Thank you. Representing the Chief Court Administrator is Tracy Duran. Welcome back.
Hi, everyone. Good to see
Hello.
some of you again.
And then finally, the Director of Special Education Equity for Kids of Connecticut, or their designee. I don't think that slot is filled right at the moment.
So do you know, Taylor, what was Beth By contacted? Because she was, yeah, she was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do have someone from the Office of Early Childhood. I believe Jennifer Jones is with us.
Oh, great.
Great.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Great, Jennifer. Excellent. Anyone else who is here whose name we did not mention? All right, great start. And we'll make that change then, addition and that change. Thanks, Taylor. So for those people who are not here, we did put the Senate bill, and if you need some of this information in PDF form because you can't open the documents here, we can share it with you. But we thought putting the original establishment of the task force, understanding why that was created, to just start with that. And it is a couple of pages. You can refer to that. And then the work that we did, we put also in the agenda. So we had a lot of documents. Those we couldn't do PDFs of all of them. But if something that you wanted to see and really can't see or need to see, let us know. We'll do the best we can to get the information to you. And our report also. This report that you saw last year, if you were on the committee that you worked on, and we're going to work from there. Yes, okay. So we'll probably put in the future then the links, and I'm looking at a note here in the chat, the PDFs too. We can do of those individual documents. The only thing then is the compilation of documents to date would be too many. But if we need them, we can put them again individually. If you would like to see one, we can let you know what they are. But they really were for our first charge, more than the second newest iteration of our expectations. So might not be coming in handy so much, but we wanted to put it in there because it was part of our original work. Anything, Christopher, please?
And I would just say those who weren't here last year when we did our work, essentially our report was 30 substantive recommendations that we included the supporting documentation, or we cited the supporting documentation for all 30 of those recommendations. And so what Alicia's talking about, we uploaded copies of the documents that we cited to our Google site. And before we get to the new charges, one thing that Dr. Roy and I had talked about, and Taylor and I as well, was many of the recommendations that we made last year were actually acted upon by the legislature in their short session. Not necessarily because we had recommended them. It could just have been happenstance or serendipity or kismet. But what we're going to do, and between now and next Tuesday is going to be quite busy for a lot of folks at the Legislative Office Building, but Taylor explained that Tim Burgeon from the Policy Office will go through the recommendations that we have made and cross-list those recommendations with actions that the Connecticut General Assembly had taken last year. And then that way we'll be able, in our report in December, to sort of remind the legislature of the steps that they've taken, and to point out some steps that they could continue to take. And an example that I can think of I know, for example, that because of federal dollars suddenly coming into the state, the state was able to do certain things, but on a time limited basis. And so that's one of the things that we'll want to identify, what are actions that have been taken, but that will be discontinued in the absence of, an appropriation of new funds. But then, Alicia, do you want to talk about our 2 new charges? Because
Right.
we were tasked with 2 new things.
So for our next meeting, we will review that information that Christopher was just talking about. So we can talk about a report that's due in January of 2023 and then of 2024. That's the 2 reports that are asked of us for this new convening of the task force. So we don't have much time to prepare the January report. So undertaking of what we are going to be doing, how we are going to approach it, and where we have come, we thought would be reasonable for us to present this January. And then we'll really focus for next January on our 2 new charges. And they are on the agenda. Recommendations to meet the demands for infant and toddler space. That's why, Jennifer, we really wanted someone from your office to be a part of this too. So we're glad we have a representative now. And the other charge is a feasibility study for looking at the possible adjusting of start times for school, with the focus being on or reason for to improve students' mental and physical well-being. So these are not new concerns, but these are really what the state wants us to look at now and see what we can find. So I think many of us have done feasibility work on start times. Some of the data that I have, though, is old because it's been looked at for, I don't know, at least 15 years, I think, in this state with some degree of importance. So we'll see what we have for data we can pull together and how we can work on these 2. So that was what Christopher and I were then talking about. How will we look at these 2 charges? And one way to approach it, we thought, again, respecting everyone's time, but yet not having to be done this way, is for us to look at possibly choosing one of the 2 charges that might be more of interest to us, or we might have more information on. And I could take one of the charges and work with a group, and so couldn't Christopher, and we could use our time and split up the larger group and look at it that way. We would still come together at the end and beginning of the meetings and share what we had, but maybe our focus could be on one of the 2. Christopher, anything you wanted to add before we ask people's feedback?
No, and I think, again, as Alicia said, this was us sort of spitballing.
Right.
In the short amount of time that we have,
Right.
how could we plan to do quality work? And so, essentially it would be, it's not that if you selected one group, you'd be abdicating all responsibility for the other, a task or assignment. It would be, you would be predominantly working on one, but then there will certainly be time for crosstalk after the groups have done their work. And then essentially what we thought we might present to the legislature in this report is what our plan would be for doing the work. Since we couldn't possibly, plan and execute the task between now and January the 1st, but we could between now and then draft the plan that we would take to go forward.
And everyone would have input on both the charges, and you would read and be involved with the work. It's maybe just one focus that you could do more research, possibly help with the writing or whatever your interests were. So feedback on that idea, that approach.
I think that sounds reasonable in the few meetings or months we have before the January. I guess I was wondering too, certainly about the early childhood, and maybe Jennifer, can speak that there's, expected dollars coming down from the feds in this particular area. And if we were going to make sure we were going to at least anticipate how, or make recommendations on how some of those anticipated dollars may come down. Because I find that sometimes that's a roadblock for us in the state. When the RFP comes out, it's like, oops, we have to do something. So anyway, that was just fun.
Anything you wanted to say, Jennifer or Ed?
Yeah, so my direct role at OEC, I manage our child daycare contract, which serves infants and toddlers through state funding subsidy. And I'm unsure about federal dollars coming down, but the Office of Early Childhood is currently writing an RFP for infant toddler spaces to open it up to all programs statewide. So childcare centers, group childcare homes, and family childcare homes. The legislature wrote in $25 million for us to create 1,300 spaces this year, which is what we're in the middle of doing. We're doing a 3-tiered approach to these spaces. We've offered a round 1 application to currently funded child daycare programs because they are the only state-funded grant or contract that serves infants and toddlers. So those folks already know what they're doing. They can pick up more spaces, open more classrooms, and get kiddos in the door. Our second round is for school readiness programs who currently only serve 3- and 4-year-olds. They would be new to the infant toddler world, so the application process is a little different for them. And then, as I spoke to, round 3 is a full RFP opening up spaces statewide. So there is work being done to meet that demand currently. So I can definitely speak to that in greater detail.
Great information. Thank you.
Ms. Parisi?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the overview and background. A question is, would we have to provide a clear rationale in our report? I think I heard you say for January as to why we decided to go one route or the other on these 2 initiatives. So we can't just say because we have an affinity for one or the other. Would we need to do some work to say based on this, and then we're choosing to do one or the other?
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. We as a task force will work on both of the charges, but maybe half of our committee will work on one charge while the other half of the committee works on the other to maximize the use of our time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think for those who weren't with us before, when this task force was originally created, we, and Dr. Roy and I were involved in the early stages of the crafting of the legislation. We were very, I don't think insistent is too strong a word, that the agencies be represented. Because everything that impacts our students is impacted by all of the agencies that are represented here. And we don't want to be in the business of making recommendations to the legislature that lose sight of entire swaths of the government or of the community. And so I think that's why we're so grateful to have you all here. And we think we'll be able to do as good a job this time as we did last year, because everybody really came together and was so forthcoming with information. And again, I think I suppose we could go in January with sort of a half-baked plan or a half-baked report, but that's not what we did, and it's not what we want to do. So I think if we take this time to craft a good plan and present that plan to the legislature, and then spend the next calendar year actually doing the work of executing the plan, that seemed to us to be a good way to go. Particularly since we'll very likely need to call upon resources that aren't represented in this body. Acting school superintendents, acting school principals, acting athletic directors, just in terms of the school start time topic, for example.
So do people have an affinity for one of the other, just so that we can kind of divide our ability to really research and try to address one? Again, the entire task force will look at both charges and the information presented and give their approval on it. It's just trying to make it easier for us to get the job done.
I think we should say to Jennifer, you don't have a choice. You're town
No,
council.
sorry, Jennifer.
No, that's totally fine.
So, Dr. Roy, shall we have people enter into the chat?
That'd be great.
Okay, yeah. So if you guys don't mind entering into the chat, which topic you would like to, which task you'd like to work on, that'll give us a starting place.
Like a nice division here. Good. So I'm interested in both. Good. You got a lot of people here. Maybe everyone already responded. Great. Perfect, either, so we can look at that. And again, we will be presenting the information at all of our meetings for both, just so you have an understanding of what's happening with each, unless we decide otherwise as we embark actually on the process. Anything else then about we move forward, do we think? I don't want to. Yeah, please, Irene.
Quick question. So the Senate Bill 2 that you provided, is that the codified version from the June special session? Because I know sometimes if we don't look at the signed version, there might be language that may have changed.
Yeah, this is only the original bill that asked last year. So this is 2146. So this is last year. So I don't have, and I don't know if I see Devin joined us too. Devin or Taylor have the actual language. I thought I had a snippet, but I'm not sure I actually did. I just know these were the charges. Devin or Taylor, do you know of the actual language?
I'm sure I could pull it up from SB2 if that's what you're looking for.
Yes, how we were given them more charges. Please, Irene, more.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure, because I know sometimes if you're not looking at the actual codified version of it, some things might have been deleted or added. I just want to be certain. Thank you.
Yes. I think it really was very terse and just kind of made those two statements, I think, the portion that concerns us. But let's be sure. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
Taylor, if you don't mind emailing us just sort of the PDF of the public law, that would be great.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll make sure we get the PDFs to you quickly of those, of the list of, well, as soon as we make the changes for the list of appointees and then the other information so that you have it. Okay, then we proposed 2 additional meetings just for this year, this calendar year, which would enable us to have the report in whatever phase it's going to be for January, which we know will be just early, and outlining kind of what we have done and where we plan to go is what we think we'll be able to accomplish by then. Those dates and times seem to work for people. Are they okay? And usually an hour we found in the past has been enough. An hour and a half was set aside. Comments or reactions to that? Seem okay? We'll only take what we need. Okay. And maybe working, you know, we hope next time we can get that into two groups and work on these charges, so that we might need a little more time and then come back at the end. So it might take a little more than an hour, but we respect people's time as we had done in the past, and we've been able to keep to that. So we hope we can continue that. Christopher, anything else?
No, I think that's it. And again, by the time we meet on the 21st, we should be able to give an update as to what the legislature has done this last session that addressed our previous recommendations. So that will give us a little more information to sort of consider as well.
And maybe we can find another way. Bring any documents that you have, which I guess means PDFs of the documents seem to be most well received by this group. And we can try to share them. We can also put them on the screen for ourselves in our groups so that people can read them. But if we have the PDFs in advance, if you have them in advance of the 21st and want to share them with us, then we can look at them at the meeting. Anything at all that you wanted to bring forth, your ideas are fine too. I'm not asking you to write anything, but anything that you do have would be helpful for those meetings.
And I think for the, oh, I'm sorry, Irene.
Go ahead and finish your thought and then I'll ask my question.
Okay, the one thing I was just going to say for those who weren't here the last time, each time we drafted language, we shared it with the full group so that, and we actually voted on each of our recommendations because we wanted every member of the group to if they were able to come to the meetings, to be able to lend their support to anything that we were putting forward. So we will do that this time too. People will submit things separately. We can draft language, but then it will be shared with the whole, and people can weigh in at that point too. But please.
So just wondering, the two charges. So I'll talk about the feasibility study. We don't have to complete the feasibility study by January, correct? We're just framing out what the feasibility study will entail. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just helped facilitate the remote learning feasibility study, and it took us a year to do.
Yeah.
So just and that was a tight timeline.
If
letting
it's going
you
to be, yeah,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
completely agree. I mean, and this topic has been, especially the school start times, truly has been talked about so much, but at least, now it's at the state level. So that's, if it's going to happen, I think that's where it would need to be because there's so many variables. So it's great that we have this charge now, but you're right, we certainly will need that time.
And the truth is, I don't know when the legislature passed this legislation, I don't know that they anticipated that it would take us until, none of us was contacted to sort of get together until the very end of October. And I think that being the case, we don't want to do a half-baked job. We'll spend the next few weeks putting together a plan for what that feasibility study would look like. And we'll present that plan in January, and then we'll spend the year doing the work.
Absolutely. Thank you. Other comments or questions about anything here from anyone?
I'm inclined to say, Dr. Wood, that we should quit while we were ahead.
Well, it's a beautiful Friday afternoon. We always value
And
everyone's
the
time.
daylight is still going on. It won't be the
Really?
next few days.
Right, for just a couple more days before we have to change the times again. But enjoy that time, and we know we'll have a lot to talk about for the next meeting, so we're not going to keep people any longer then. So
Thank
thanks,
you.
everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Yes, thanks. You too, everyone. And we'll
Thank
see you
you.
then on the 21st. We'll get the agenda to you in advance. And if you have anything to share in advance you'd like us to submit to everyone, then please, any documents at all, please let us know and we'll get them to you as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.